Hi everybody, Gisele Grenier here. Well, for today's activity, what I thought I would do is create a journal page to basically introduce myself. Now, this page is being done really for a swap, and where we swap actual pages, and this is a great thing to introduce yourself to a swap partner. But I did something like this recently for another journal. You can also do this as an actual piece on a piece of canvas. You can do it like as an art piece on a piece of canvas or a board or whatever. Anything that I teach, unless I specifically say it's for paper or whatever, you can do this on anything you want. So the one thing is that when you're creating a piece based on a theme is I like to do a little bit of preparation work. For the video, it's to save time. Usually I just kind of build as I go. So the actual supplies, okay, so I brought out some brushes, and these are Royal and Langnickel. These are Aqualon brushes. These are for, I like using these for watercolors, and I have a little mop brush. Okay, so I have a large flat and two small rounds and a mop brush. I have some water-soluble mediums, except for this. So I have Royal watercolor pencils. I've got water-soluble graphite. I've got some watercolors, and then over on the side here, I have it out, but I may not use it, is I have the colored pencils, and I have some colored sticks. I may not use these, I don't know, but I like to have everything right in front of me. It's like a big horseshoe shape of all these things that I have around me. That way they're easy to get to as I'm building, and my piece starts to take its own form. I can pick and choose what I want. I also have two leafing pens. I may or may not use them, but everything that I actually end up using will be at the end of the video. Okay, so you're not going to miss anything. Gold and copper leafing pens. I've got two white gel pens, and I've got two only because this one is almost running out. So two white gel pens. I have a copper writing pen, and I have a pigment liner, which is waterproof. The waterproof pigment liners, doesn't matter the brand, are usually waterproof on paper, but the minute you do some writing on something else, they're not waterproof if you put oil on top. If you're doing this on a support other than watercolor paper, or if you're using something other than watercolors, let's say if you're going to do something in oils or acrylics, you may want to use the Staedtler Lumicolor Permanent Special liner. The Permanent Special has to have the word special on it. That one is waterproof even on glass. Okay, so I'll put this aside. Now, although these sets include the brushes, I prefer using these brushes here. Okay, I've got some white glue. I've got some Spectrafix to put some protection over my watercolor drawing. I've got some scissors. I've got a tape runner, corner punch, and a border punch. I may use these, I may not, I don't know. This is really cool. It's from Royal. It's basically, you can interchange the tops. You put these on tubes of bottled paint, and I like using this especially with the watercolor pencils. That way I don't have to keep dipping my brush into water. It's always going to be wet, so that's pretty cool. Now, for the actual things about myself, to save time, I pulled out a whole bunch of stuff that basically visually would show what I'm about. I'm going to show you these, but I'm only using a very small piece. I'm a fan of steampunk, so I've got some of these really nice papers. So what I did is I used a Fiskars round punch, and I cut out a couple little circles in here, okay? And then this one here, I like this, so I cut out a strip for a border. Okay, so I've got my two little circles. One is time, and the other one, what is it? Oh, another clock. And then this strip, okay? So I've got that. And I have a picture of myself when I was little, like little, very little. I just printed this on regular 20-pound bond paper, nothing fancy, regular paper, and I printed it on my inkjet printer, black and white, using the best setting. I'm a fan of music, so I've got this, I printed music paper on cardstock, and then, but I printed it in color, so it gave me this distressed look, so I tore a piece of that out. I'm an avid animal lover, and instead of putting a whole bunch of pictures of animals, I took pictures of my two recent most important animals, Harley, who's no longer with us, and Chaos, who is currently living with my son. And speaking of my son, the two important men in my life, Harrison and Joe. This is the picture of Joe and Harrison at his military graduation. He's now a firefighter for the Department of Defense in Canada. I love reading books, actual books that you can hold in your hands. Okay, I'm not a fan of reading online, although that's the way things are going. I love reading books. Now, this is a page taken from an altered book project that I did, where I had to cut out stuff out of the book. And this book, I checked first, and it was okay. But this book is dated 1906. So I took a piece out of that book that was basically from a cutout. I love wine, especially from Magnata down in Beamsville, and so I love this Tuscan look. This is from a napkin. I took the liner off, and it's from a napkin, so I'll use that. It's very specific wine, though. Like when I go to a restaurant, I don't even bother ordering wine because I just don't like it. It's specific wine. And a bird. I love birds. And to this morning when I woke up, I'm looking outside and there's a nuthatch on the trees and sparrows and all over the place, and it's just nice to see. So I love birds. Okay. And I'm not a fan of wool, but I saw this at the store and I thought it was kind of cool. So I picked up a roll of that. And I'm a fan of industrial. So I got these little, and I'm missing one. It's around here. Oh, I'll have to find out where it went. Little plastic things. I got these at the hardware store, and I'll put these in the corner to make it look like punches at the corner. I got those, and I've got some washers. So when I paint my portrait of myself, I may put these on as my earrings, and this is my necklace. These are also got the hardware store. I may use these, I may not. I don't know, but I'm a fan of anything industrial. And then what I have here is I've got this is a little embellishment thing that I got as a, I guess I'd call it like a paper gift that I got from somebody. And it's got a maple leaf on it. I'm Canadian, so I like that. And then it opens out. So this sticks down and this opens out. So what I may do is in here put little like words of something that about myself that may not be so good. I'm not a patient person. I'm opinionated, so I may put those down, and then what I may do is I may glue this on there, and then sew the button on so it will I can actually close it. Just wrap that around and close it. I don't know. I'll have to see what happens. So that's what I have so far, and to get started, I'm just going to kind of push this stuff out of the way. And one thing when you're doing a self-portrait of yourself, people kind of get all panicky going, I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't do this, can't do that. Can't is a word you got to get rid of. You can do anything, okay? And people are really, really critical of themselves when they actually have to do a portrait. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I could have used this as my self-portrait, the picture of myself. I could have used that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to be doing a quick painting because by profession I'm an artist specializing in portraiture of people and pets and mixed media. But the actual portrait I'm going to do is not going to be some fancy portrait. I'm going to do a contrasting portrait in the style of Andy Warhol. So, the first thing that I'm going to do is actually get that portrait done first because it'll give time for the paper to dry. Now, this is 300-pound watercolor paper. I got this at Curry's, but you can get watercolor paper. Any place that sells art supplies, more than likely they will have watercolor paper. So this is really nice. And what I did with this, it came in a massive sheet of 22 by 30. I measured everything out, 8 by 10, but I didn't use scissors. Okay, the edges of watercolor paper is got this nice rough texture to it. So what I did is I lightly scored the lines with an X-Acto knife, then folded the paper back and forth, and then tore it. And that's what gave me these nice edges. And then what I did is I took some, I think it's 180-pound sandpaper, wrapped it around a piece of wood, and just kind of lightly sanded the edges to fray it up a little bit. Okay, so that's that. For this project, I did not have to buy one special thing for it. I just went around the house and looked for stuff that I could use. Okay, so I'm going to basically now kind of measure out. I'm just going to use my my graphite pencil, the water-soluble graphite, and just kind of laying it out. I don't want to put the picture in the middle. I'm just going to kind of lay almost like an invisible border of where I want my portrait, right about in this corner right here. And I like doing everything in threes, so I won't do 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do 1, 2, overlap, do something here, overlap, and do something here. Okay, so once you do this, you know, find stuff that you want, put it out there, and visually the person should be able to get an idea of who you are, what your likes and dislikes are. But you can also, on top of that, go over with pens and pencils and make little bubbles and write stuff down. Okay, so I'm going to start with my large round brush, and I'm going to basically get a quick sketch done. I'm going to use, if I want something vibrant, I'm going to use pink. And what I should have done is I should have sprayed, actually I can still do that. I'm going to spray my paints first. I should have did that first. Just gets them wet. And I'll work with the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, that way they won't get muddy. So, and you see I'm being quite rough with this. Okay, so I'm just basically making a shape. Okay? How easy was that? And I can come in and I'm just gonna, and I'm basically representing myself with colors that I like. Being that I'm a portrait artist, I do most of my stuff in graphite. It's pencil. It can be boring. It can be, I mean, the stuff is actually quite nice, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for imagination with color, except if the person wants a portrait done that has color. Okay, so I'm going to use pink for the face, and I'm just going to come around like this and grab a little bit of purple right in here. Okay, so see, nothing fine arty about this. And for my eyes, I've always loved blue eyes. You know that? I've always loved blue eyes. Now this is where a little bit of experience comes in. I like to divide the face into thirds. So if I come down here and I come here, so I can see that there's, I'm just making a little line, a little smudge here. Okay, and I'm using a light blue, and I'm just gonna, and then of course for the lips, I love red lips, but I'm going to come in with a smaller brush. And the brush is, oh, what is this? I can't see, it's a little number 2 round with red. If I want to be different, I actually should just make it pink. I should just make the lips pink. Okay, see, nothing fancy. Okay, I'm just putting an image of myself. And then I can go into a little bit of dark blue. And put a little bit of dark blue right in here. Okay? The bigger the brush, the better is what I love to say. Go back into a little bit more light blue. And I'm just going to spread that out for the eyebrows. See, there's nothing crazy about this other than that it's just an image. Let's get a little bit of yellow in here. And I can come in, what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to put green into everything that I do, because I don't like the color green. I never have, and I probably never will. So I was going to put a little bit of green down here, which is basically for the arm, and in here. That's it. That takes care of that. And just grab a little bit more paint just to show shadows in here. Okay, so there we go. Now, with this, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to come in, oopsie, and I'm just going to erase that border. When this is dry, what I will do is I'll spray a little bit of Spectrafix on there. That way, if I happen to get something wet on top of this, it's not going to smear. But you know what you notice? The paper didn't warp. And that's because it's so thick. Okay, now let's get some gluing done. First thing I want to do is I want to put the border on. See this beautiful border? What I don't like on this border is I don't like the tools. Well, I shouldn't say that because I love working with Joe in the shop. The plants, I guess, because I kill everything. I have to find out what I have to cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between to keep the birdie, and I'm going to keep the gears. Okay, so I'm going to go like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it down, and then I'll trim it after. I am going to use the glue for this, the white glue. And I'm going to be overlapping. Oh, come on. You don't need a lot. Okay. So I love steampunk. That's one thing. I have the birdie in there. I'm going to go right to the edge. There we go. Then I'll trim it after. And now I'm going to start assembling some of these pieces. And when you're doing your assembly, you can kind of think about what you want to do and where you want to put things. So I'm just going to sort of like do a dry fit, because I'm also going to put a wash of color in the background. Let's see, can I put this right underneath? I think I'm going to cut this paper down. And I like tearing. I love tearing. If I can avoid using a ruler, I'll do that. And now these edges here, I'm going to take watercolor pencil that's a really, really rough brown, a red brown. And I'm just going to color the edges. Now the one thing with the royal colored pencils and the regular watercolor pencils and that, they don't have the color names written on the pencils, which actually gets you to look at the color and not have to copy a design because of the name. You just look at the color, which I think is really important. I could have used the watercolor tray, but I didn't want a color mix. Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? Me not wanting to color mix. Then I'll just add some water. There we go. And that just makes it look distressed. How cool is that? Then I'll go back over a little bit more, over the wet part. Make sure you protect your table when doing this too. Okay. I like that. So I'm going to let that sit for a bit to dry out. And I'm also going to do the same thing that I just did with all these pictures that I tore. The picture of Chaos, Harley, myself, and this piece here. I'm going to do the same thing with the watercolor pencil all the way around, and then I'll let them dry. Thought I would show you some of the things that I was doing. So I did my piece here, and the one of Harley, and the one of Chaos. But this piece here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bottle, and I'm just going to go right into the watercolor paint, and I'm just going to basically put that in there, and squeeze just a little bit to get it really washy, and then go into the brown just for the edges. This paper is extremely porous because it's paper that's really old, so I didn't want to use the watercolor pencils on that. Okay, and you just basically, you can do whatever you want with it. And just know that the more water you add to paper, it's going to curl. This paper is actually quite thick. You know, just use yellow inside, because I'm sticking with more the neutral tones. I'm not going to get mud, but mud is fine on this because it's brown. There we go. And then I can just squeeze this out onto my tray just to clean the paint out of the brush. I think this is so cool. They didn't have stuff like this when I was in art school. There we go. Look at that. Okay, now the music paper, what I also did is I came back with a little bit more red and just went over like this, and then I brought some of the paint down inside. Okay, just to add some contrast. I don't want my whole page just to be vintage brown. I want to add some color. Okay, like that. The picture of myself, actually that's a good idea. Just take it into washy paint, and you can just drip it right into the sides. Like that, and then let that dry on a paper towel. And the picture of Harley, I didn't want to distress that one too much. So I just went in with some brown and kind of went over his ears a little bit. Not too much. Now this is printed on just regular photocopy paper, which is extremely light, so your paper will curl. But I didn't go over this with the watercolor crayons or the watercolor pencils because it would tear the paper going over it wet. So put a little bit of yellow in there. And the one of Chaos, I'm not going to do too much with it. Maybe just a little bit of yellow on the outside because it's a very dark photo. Okay, and I believe that's it for that. And what I'm going to do now is push this aside. And this is dry, so I'm just going to spray with a little bit of Spectrafix. We'll just give a little bit of protection to the actual piece. So I'm going to use a heat gun to dry these. You can let it dry naturally. I'm going to use a heat gun to dry this just to speed up the process for me. Okay, so everything's dry now, and I'm doing another dry fit, and I'm figuring out what I'm going to use and what I'm not going to use. So I have a basic idea of what I want to do. Now I have to put a wash of watercolor down. And the reason why I did the dry fit is I wanted to be able to see what I was going to be looking for color. This piece is taking more of a vintage theme with the hit of color here, so the focus is going to be on my portrait. I've got the two little washers as earrings, so I'm going to have to draw in some little strands on that. The big washer, I'm probably not going to end up using it, or I may glue it in here. I don't know. So if you're going to embed a whole bunch of stuff onto your journal page, make sure that your paper is very strong. So I'm just going to slide this stuff over, and I'm sure when I actually put it together, I'll change it again. And I'm going to use my big brush, and I'm just going to wet the paper first. And I can wet the whole thing, it doesn't matter. Just don't soak it. And I'm going to take, in my palette here, I'm going to take some red with a little bit of brown. Oh, you know what I should do? Do it with green. I'm trying to get myself to use the color green everywhere because I don't like the color green, but I'm trying to use it. This ends up being a gray. I'm going to go right around. Green is opposite on the color wheel from red, so it naturally goes well. But if you mix green and red together, you get something that's almost like black. There we go. Just to get something there. Just making it a little bit more intense. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a brighter green down here. There we go. Just something a little bit brighter. But what I'm going to do too, you know what? I'm going to go with some light blue. And I'm going to bring the light blue in here. And blue and green are next to each other on the color wheel. I keep getting my microphone caught. Sorry about that. Blue is next to green on the color wheel, so it'll naturally blend well if the colors touch each other. And I'm not using a small brush because I want to have overlapping strokes, depending on where I'm going to lay the photos down. And when I forgot to bring one thing out, the medium that I use for collaging is a Deco page. I forgot to bring that out, so I'll have to get that. Bring a little bit of blue right on the edge there. A little bit of darker blue. I'm going to do this part here when it's a little bit closer to the end. Oh, maybe it'll be okay. There we go. So there we are. That takes care of that. Now, while this is what I can figure this out. Now I'm going to get. Oh, I forgot. I dropped my little birdie on the floor. I'm going to get that Deco page medium. And you can use this as glue or collage. I don't like using white glue for doing collage because it's not really flexible. But for this thing here, it's really, really strong. Now, when I do a lot of collage work with Deco page, I sort of like... Oh, let me just get a sponge brush. I like using, putting on gloves because it makes a mess. So I'm going to lay this piece in here first. So I'm just going to put a little bit of collage glue, the Deco page, right on here. Okay. And I'm going to lay that down right there. Because this is tissue, okay, then I can take this and go right over it. And if you're using tissue and if it tears, don't worry about it. That just adds to the interest. Oh, like this one here. Sometimes, depending on what I'm collaging to, I will thin down the Deco page just a little bit to get it started. I'm going to go right over the edges to seal them. And what I could do, now this bottle's almost empty, so I'm not too worried about it, but when you're going over a watercolor medium, the watercolor will become soluble again. So if you put your brush back into your Deco page, it's going to have a little bit of watercolor medium in it. The edges here I'm going to tear at the end. Okay, I'm not worrying about it right now. And I'm just going to start collaging this stuff down. Now this one here, I had that there and the picture of me, so I'm going to put that there. And that's dry. So I'm just going to go right over. And the one thing with Deco page, it dries clear, doesn't yellow. I'm going to put this on a little bit of an angle. And seal the outside edge. And you can get this in matte or gloss. So because this is matte, I am going to wipe off a little bit of the glue on here. Oops, let me just get baby wipe, because I don't want to lose the shine on this stock here. Okay, then I'm just going to even that out a little bit. Just kind of feather it out so I don't have a hard line. Okay, and then and just because there's already some on the bottom, I don't need to put another layer. I'm pushing down hard to kind of burnish everything, and then I'll clean it up. So I didn't need to remove that glue because the picture covered it. Okay, it takes care of that. And I'm trying to remember now where everything was, and I don't remember. So that kind of makes it random. Now this one here, I'm going to kind of crumple this up a little bit because it's really, really curvy. So I have to make sure that it's going to stick. Put that there. And it looks like I'm putting a lot, but it ends up going right through into the paper. This one here, for this piece, I'm going to put a piece of baking parchment paper. It's a particular parchment paper that I found at the store. Believe it or not, it's a no-name brand, and nothing sticks to it. So I'll put that on top of the entire page while it's drying, and put a book on top, so it will fuse everything together. The tissue tore a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of massage that to move it a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to push that in there. A little bubble was starting to form, so just get rid of any hard paint edges, any glue edges. It'll all dry clear. Okay. And then, the one of Joe and Harrison. So I'm just going to use a corner punch, and I think actually I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And I should use my paper trimmer, but I'm not worried about it. I want to keep the fire truck in there. There we go. So it's going to use a corner punch. I'm going to overlap that. Not sure yet about this one here, so I better do a little bit more thinking here. That's going to go right there. No, that's going here. So Harley's going right about here. Okay. And if you're not a fan of doing collaging, that's no problem. I never did collaging before until I started really expanding my art journaling and my mixed media. I actually disliked collaging. But now I think it's great when you can reuse materials. Just pressing really hard to get rid of any air bubbles. I like reusing materials quite a bit. Mamu, my little kitty cat. Well, not my kitty cat, Harrison's kitty cat. Just have her overlap Harley just a little bit. Okay. And so this is going to go here, and I'm going to let that dry, and then Joe. And there's still the birdie, so I can embellish that. I'll put that in after. And I'm going to put Joe right in here. Joe and Harrison. Now this is actual photo paper. So I'm just going to put a very, very light coat on this. And if you use a really, really good printer, it'll be permanent. It won't smear. There we go. Okay, the little bird I'm going to put right in here. Actually, no, the little bird I'm going to put on top. I lied. I'm going to do some writing here. I'm going to put the little bird right here. Okay, and I think that's it for the actual collaging. I'm going to put that in water. And just going to tear this along the edge. If I tear it off the page a little bit, it's no big deal. Get off me. Now what it did do is it wrapped around, which I didn't want, so I just have to pull that there. Tear while it's wet because it'll give a really rough edge to it. I love anything rough. I don't like perfection. I'm not big on straight lines. Okay. And then I can take a little bit of the tissue, the napkin that I tore off, and just kind of overlap the wine bottle. It's there. It's stuck to my finger. And just take a little bit of glue on my finger. But you may want to put some rubber gloves on if you feel more comfortable. And put that right on top. The foam brushes are great for distribution. I don't use my good brushes for this whatsoever, because good brushes are very, very hard to find. Once you find your brush, don't use it with any glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reserve all this stuff here for doing my writing. While I'm at it, because this piece is going to take a little bit to dry. I'm going to put my little, where's the one of the clock? I'm not going to put any collage material on top of it though, any medium. The clock there, and one here. This is going to go here, which the button will, go here. The button I'm actually going to sew, so that's going to be done after. And the cut off piece that I did from the edges, that's going to go on the back, which will cover the thread, which may or may not be necessary. The gluing of the washer, now I'm going to do that after, because I need to press this down now with a piece of the wrap. And all it is just no-name parchment paper. Okay, and I'm just going to cut a piece. And I'm just going to put one piece over and one piece under, and then put a book right on top of it. And I'm going to let it sit for about an hour. The page is almost finished. Let it sit for about an hour. Look how beautiful that is just with the parchment on top. Ooh, that would make for a nice page right there. Let it sit for about an hour. Then we come back, it'll be all dry. And then I will do some writing on it and embellish it. And then it's finished. Okay, so it's all pretty dry. Then when I took a little still sanding block and I sanded over some of the edges and distressed some of the edges a little bit. You don't have to, but it's just something I wanted to do. Now I'm going to start putting the things in. Now in this little book, I'm going to put the button there. What I did is I found some some of my handmade papers, hand-painted papers, and this here is actually Staedtler vellum that I threw on a watercolor wash. I have a whole box of papers that I've just painted as backgrounds. I just cut things out and I use the circle punch. So what I'm going to do is I need, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I can do this, 4, 5, 6. I want them hidden. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to put little words on these and then just glue them inside. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to put that here and then sew the button. So to do that, let's get this done first. I'm going to take a cutting mat. I'm going to put it underneath. Position where I want this here. This is actually pretty good right there. And I'm going to use my awl. You could use a nail or anything. I just want to puncture the holes in there, so it'll just be a little bit easier for the needle to go through. And I'm going to start from the back side because I'm going to actually be putting probably another little circle just to cover up a little bit of the thread, or put a label on there because this is being done for a swap, so somebody else is going to be getting this page. So I'm just using a tapestry needle with my thread, and it's the same thread I use for all my bookbinding. It's cording, and it's from Lee Valley. And I'm just going to tie this into a knot just to make it strong. You can glue it if you want. I actually may leave the thread showing. I don't know yet. It'll be really cool if I put another button there. I don't have another one that looks like that though. Okay, so now I want to go here. And I'm going to come back out, and I'm just going to go through all the holes. Okay, that looks good. It's just, and this part here is just more for decoration. It's actually, it doesn't have to be terribly strong. And I didn't totally glue the button because I wouldn't be able to wrap the wool around it. So now we've got all the holes covered up, and let's just get a close up there for you. So I've got all the holes covered up there, sewn through, and then I'll just tie this here. I'll just tie this. What I think, you know what? I'm going to make this into a double knot, but I'm going to just cut the thread and leave a tail, because I could put a tag that has, because this is for a swap, so I want to put something here to show who it's from. I may put a tag here with a string through the tag and then just glue the tag here. So that's a good idea. So I'm just going to basically cut this with a bit of a tail. So I'll be able to tie that on there. Move that to the side. Put the needle, I've got my needles in a piece of styrofoam there so I don't hurt myself. Okay, that takes care of that. And I'm going to glue this down. Now this has adhesive on it. Or does it? It should. Son of a gun, it doesn't. I thought it did. I thought it did. Huh, okay. Well, I'll just use some weld bond for that. And one thing I can't stand with glue, doesn't matter what glue, is it always dries up here. I should actually just use a toothpick for this. If that's not going to have a label on it, I'm going to get rid of all this extra stuff. I'm surprised. I thought this was actually a label. It was pretty flimsy. Okay. It'll be nice and strong. I want it to open like that. So right there. Okay. And I'm doing this all at once because I can, when I put the little circles inside with glue and hold that down, and then when I put the actual wool on top and hold that down, everything will be pressed together. So I'm going to take a few minutes and write some little words on here, which are little things that, about me that may or may not be so pleasant, which are sort of like a secret. So I'm just going to write the words down on here, and when we come back, we'll glue them in. Here we go. Okay, so I've got my little circles with words, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because that's between me and my swap partner. And then all I gotta do, I'm not gonna tie this all the way around tight because the glue hasn't dried yet, but just like that, and it'll hold closed. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my earrings in. So I'm going to take my little BB washers. And I figure if I put something in, right about here. And I'll just with my, this is let's see, this is a colored pencil, not a watercolor pencil. And I'm just going to draw. I love industrial jewelry. Okay, so I'm just going to draw my lines there. And, this is going to be touchy. Okay, you know what's going to be easier? If I just put a speck of glue right on the paper. Oh, I should have mixed that glue in with paint, with gold paint. There we go. Let me just... Excuse me. And just going to move that around to get that covered. Pick up the excess glue. I may actually put something inside. I don't know. Oh, mind you, I kind of like that. This is just a gray colored pencil. And while I'm here, I'm going to take a colored pencil very similar to the watercolor, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of detail in here. Nothing too fancy. I don't want to take away from the actual look of this. And I want to take, just gonna put this in between my lips there. Okay. Now, let's. Now I didn't need the big washer, and I think that might be a little bit much to put. Oh, this will actually make that quite heavy, but I don't like the way it looks there. No, probably won't end up using that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue these little dots, the corners of the pages. It's going to have to take quite a bit of glue for that. Actually, yeah, that should be alright. That should be alright. What I think I'm going to do is, I'll do this off camera. I'm going to have to cut down the, I have to cut down the center pieces of these little plastic tips. Hang on a sec. I apologize for that. I should have had that prepared, but I really apologize for that. So all I did is I cut off the little. These are screw covers. When you get furniture, you just put these on top of the like cabinets and stuff. You just put these in to cover what the screw looks like. You can buy these very inexpensively. I got these at Lowe's. And just put a little bit of glue underneath. That one it's causing me trouble. I may have to actually get a fresh one. I tried to cut the one off with the glue. These are fine. This one here is being extremely difficult. Okay, and now I have to choose my pencil. So I think if I use black on this, I think it's going to be way too strong. So I think I'm going to, no, I'm going to use black anyways. So I'm going to write in here, and I'm going to try to follow along with the curve of the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in, I'm going to write down, let me introduce myself, and I'm going to use almost something that looks like typewriter lettering. You can write it any way you want. You can even just cut out words if you want. And if you're not sure about writing, then what you can do is type it out on your computer just so you can get an idea of what the letters look like. So see, I'm not being too careful filling them in. And if this part's boring, you can always fast forward the video. I just want this looking like a really, really rough typewriter. Okay, so let me better fit this in. This isn't going to fit. I'm just going to get this based in first. Intro. Introduce. Oh yeah, it'll fit. Myself. Okay, then I'm just going to fill in the letters. And you can choose to put whatever you want because this is an introduction to my swap partner. I want to put the title of it here. If this was a mixed media piece, you could stencil this if you want. I'm finding that just handwriting stuff tends to make me a little bit more alert because I'm actually having to think about it. There we go. Oh, I hear a siren. Okay. And let's fill that in. There we go. And when that's dry, I'll come in. I don't know if my pen will be worn out. And I'll come in with and I'll go over. Yeah, this one's actually starting to. I'll have to let this dry, and I'll come in with, and I'll just go back over the letters with a little bit of white. Let's see if I can do it with this one. Yeah, this one works. Just go over with some white, just on certain parts of the letter, not everywhere. Just add a little bit of extra something. I love contrast, so this really shows that. Okay, and are we glued yet? Yeah, we're glued. So I'm going to tie this down like so. Okay, this pops up though. I'm not sure I really like that, the way that pops up. That's because the stuff inside. I guess I could have put another string here and put another button here. I don't have another button. I'll have to see if I can go to the fabric store to pick up another one. And let's see what. Oh yeah, and the gold, the leafing pens. The last step with the leafing pens is just to. I like the gold. Let's get that started, and I'm just going to roughly go over this pen. I wrecked on purpose. I let some of the ink dry out because I wanted the gold to come out really distressed. If I get a close-up, and I'll show you the difference. When I try to explain this to a lot of people, they go, I don't understand what you're talking about. So that's how that one comes out. But if I do the copper one, just shake this. See the difference? I want it like that. It's just really, really rough. I love distress. Oh, over this it looks really beautiful over the black. I love anything that's distressed. And I love gold. I'm not a blingy person. Like I like gold and silver. I prefer copper. I'm just going to do the edges. I prefer copper and bronze and stuff that looks old, distressed. My jewelry is almost industrial looking. It's like chains and chains and more chains. But I like stuff that's different. There we go. Hopefully you're able to see that. Then I can come in, I can actually add a little bit of gold over some certain things. I'm not going to put it everywhere though. Over some of the elements. It looks really good on stuff that's dark. Oh, the bird. The bird. The clock face where it's distressed. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do is I am going to glue another piece on there. I'm going to put something heavy on it. I am going to glue this other piece on here. And I'm going to go into my bucket box. There's no reason why the buttons have to match. And then while we're waiting for this to dry, I'm going to cut the tag for the back. I want this to totally represent to my swap partner more about me. And now I'm thinking I am going to put that there. It'll weigh it down. This is quite heavy. One thing when you're doing swaps is the shipping costs. So mine is going to be a little bit more money to ship, but that's okay. I don't mind. It's different when you're creating art for somebody else. It's not a commission. It's not something where you're creating art and you just buy it off the shelf. You're creating something for somebody. You have no idea what their styles are like, other than unless you guess if you see their blog or the website. But you're creating a piece of art for somebody else in hopes that they'll be able to understand a little bit more about who you are. And that's the challenge when doing these types of things, especially these journal swaps. And with these, I love doing journaling. Well, journaling is just a way that I really can express myself. But the one thing with doing these types of pieces is that when you do regular swaps, like whether you do ATCs or postcards or the actual journals themselves, is that sometimes depending on what you're sending to somebody, or even sending something to somebody as general art, is where to put it. And if it's not their style, what do you do with it? These are great because these just go into a journal. These are a whole bunch of us are getting together and just doing all of these, and then we're just going to bind them at the end and create a journal. And then when I send this to my partner, they can write down, you know, a story or how they feel or what they think they know about me, and just so they can create something on the back of the page. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my button box and see if I can find something like this one, and I'm also going to do make a tag for the back here. So we'll let that dry for a few minutes. I'm such an idiot sometimes. I didn't need to put another button here. All I did was I put a small little piece of Velcro. And then to offset, and now it looks like it's 3D, and to offset the other side, I put a little button right there, because I didn't have another one that matches. So there we go. I can still tie this down. I just have to be careful because not everything's dry. Okay. I also put a new screw cap here because this one just wasn't staying. Now, there is something missing here. I've got beautiful things happening here, and there's one thing that I haven't put into this that I absolutely love, which I don't see much of, is butterflies. I'm going to put something right here. Now, I got these stamps. These are all butterfly stamps. This has, you know, some real industrial looks to them. It came in a set that I got at a fabric store, Lens Mills. I keep thinking Fiskars was a set from Fiskars. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to basically look here to see what kind of butterfly. It looked like a butterfly that's in my hair. And depends on what I want to do. I think I'm going to do this one here. And I'm just going to put it onto a little plate. And I'm going to use green. I don't know. I'm not an experienced stamper. I'm just doing what I think will look good. Ugh, I don't like the color green. I really don't like the color green. Okay, I don't want it too dark, so I'm just going to basically 1, 2, okay. And I'll make it look like it's just resting on my hair. Yeah, that's all right. And, oops, not the same one. Just clean that off. And put that back. And the other one, I'll just make it with a bunch of lines. And I'm sure if some of you out there that do a lot of stamping, you're probably going, oh, she's doing it wrong. You know what? When it comes to journaling, there are no rules. That's the beauty of it. There are absolutely no rules when it comes to journaling. Whatever works. Now this one here, I'm going to have the butterfly coming in halfway off the page. There we go. Clean that with a baby wipe. I'm probably cleaning that wrong as well. And just put that one back. There we go. That would have looked nice if it was in gold. I'm just going to go back and put a little bit of black here. That gray just isn't quite dark enough. There we go. And I believe we're all set. Oh, close this. I believe I'm all finished. There's really nothing else left to do on here. Just going to embellish some edges a little bit more that are distressed where the paper's showing. And I believe that's done. Now for the tag. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to get some reinforcement labels. And I only need to do it on one side. And this is from paper from something that I already did. And I just put a single hole punch in it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leafing pen. You can use gold acrylic if you want. That's fine. I wouldn't use watercolors though because it'll, in case it comes off. Because this is all really glittery and stuff like that, the Spectrafix will dull it down. And I don't want it to be dull. Okay. And then this string probably isn't going to be long enough. I'll put it right here. And I'll just tie. I'm going to glue it down anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I just want it to look like it's a tag that's tied. And then this one here. Oh my goodness, this is really short. I'm sorry, I probably should be doing this off camera. This is really, really short. Hang on, bear with me. I just want to show you everything. There we go. Okay, then I'm just going to use my tape runner. And never buying this tape runner ever again. That's where the button is. Make sure that's still there. And then all I'm going to do is just with my white gel pen write down my name, my website address, and for the swap it's my own website. It's my own website, creativeartjournaling.com. So my name, the website address, and the date that I did this, and the theme, which is let me introduce myself. And then I will mail this out. Look how cute that looks. So hopefully my swap partner will be able to get a better understanding of who I am. I've got a picture when I was little I love doing portraits. This is a portrait of my dog Harley before he passed away. I love cats. I love steampunk. I love birds. My two best guys in the world. I like wine. I like stuff that's industrial. And inside here, little secrets, little secret words of things that I dislike. I like industrial jewelry. What else is there? I think they're pretty well. Oh, and I like butterflies. So I hope that just gives you an idea of what you can do for a mixed media piece, collaging and creating a self-portrait, because that's what this is. This is a self-portrait of all the things about me. So I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, stay inspired.